From the Friends Theater, hello, friends. Oh. Sorry. Of the Upper Arlington Library, this is Rock and Roll Book Club! We are taping live, and we're a monthly podcast. We actually read the book. We read it, and then we discuss it, and then we rate it, and then we give you a 12-song playlist that's been inspired by the book. So that's what's going to happen. My name is Mark Dancer, and you already met Pat Buzzard.
That's me.
This is Chuck Johnson.
Hey, everybody.
And Ryan Smith.
I am so glad we didn't invite you all to the basement.
Oh, God.
Me too.
Isn't this amazing?
The basement is it's a cool basement. I love the basement, but it's as big as, there's no way 2 tables are going in there. So
now you're dogging Chuck's
very
basement?
cozy. Yeah, no, I'm jealous of the basement. Right? All right, so what we do at the start of each show is we talk about where we stand with the subject matter, which is the band Watershed. The book is called Hitless Wonder, written by Joe A. Strike. I may be telling you some stuff you already know, but for those of you who don't know, it's a Columbus band, and back in the 90s, they came this close to making it big, and they write about that in the book. Joe's the bass player, Colin's the lead singer. So what I want to do is go around the table and just say, what's our history with Watershed? So Pat, starting with you, were you a fan? What did you know about them? Where do you approach Watershed?
Well, I moved to Columbus, Ohio in '96. So when I was here, they were already established and really they were the band in town. Unfortunately, never got to see them then. Just heard them on the radio. And when you come from out of town, and this is pre-internet, I thought they already were rock stars. I thought they were a much bigger band than I knew. So okay. Yeah, that's me.
All right, Chuck?
I agree. I thought the same thing. I came up in the metal scene, so it was definitely contrasting interest there. But I saw their name everywhere. So I didn't know their music. I knew, the hits that CD 1025 provided me with, but I hadn't attended any shows, and I wasn't, sure what to think of them.
Okay, how about you, Ryan?
I got sent The More It Hurts, The More It Works when I worked as a DJ in college radio. And I was in the book, they talk about that Comfest gig where they got taken over by McDonald's. And I went to see them, and they were the biggest band in town, in my head. And then they came out in the McDonald's suits. And I scratched my head like the rest of the crowd.
They write about that in the book. They play Comfest dressed up in McDonald's outfits, and they're eating French fries and throwing burgers at the crowd, and I'm trying to remember why they did that, but there was a reason. You should read the book.
That sounds like maybe a question for later.
Yeah.
Wasn't it their manager that had the mobile McDonald's, so they had all that
gear?
That's
right. They had somebody who was backing them who had McDonald's money.
They turned the golden arches upside down to make it the W.
Yeah, that's right.
It's actually
clever.
really
They're
funny.
They're clever guys, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What's that supposed to mean?
I knew of Watershed. I was on the radio in Columbus when they were signed to Epic Records, and I remember when Columbus was the next Seattle, and there were bands like Howling Maggie and Watershed that were. I remember reading a thing in Entertainment Weekly about Columbus bands that are going to be breaking big, and but I didn't become familiar with the music until I think a few years ago, and I saw Colin play at Comfest at the gazebo stage, and I remember my wife and I were on a picnic blanket and people throwing frisbees, and then I hear this guy singing, "She's pretty in a slutty way," and I'm like, is that what I heard? It's very catchy. It's very catchy. So then I started to investigate the music after that. Okay, now we're going to get into the book. And on the cover of the book, there is a blurb from another author, Tom Perrotta. And he says, this is a scrappy band that doesn't know how to quit. So Pat Buzzard, you were in Saving Jane. You had kind of a similar career. And,
yeah.
why did they do what they do? Are these the most persistent guys you've ever known, in the music world, or how?
I mean, the short answer is yes. I mean, in my own experience, my band, we toured till the very end of it, till we couldn't take another second. We were losing money just to leave town, and those guys just kept going and going and going. And and I mean, I know what it's like to drive to Great Falls, Montana, and play to nobody. I've done it too many times. So to read so painfully yet humorously, that's the great thing about the book. How they would just kept trudging from show to show to show. And if one person showed up, they would melt one face. And if 1,000 people showed up, they melted 1,000 faces. So, I mean, they get my vote for the toughest guys in rock.
You got something?
I mean, I agree. They were just road warriors. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe how extensive they toured. And it was all about just them being unified and being a group, and it's us against the world. And we don't care if we're getting dropped from our label. We don't care if we have a label. Of course, they wanted one, but they did it for the love of the music, and I thought that was pretty solid.
Watershed gets started by two friends, childhood friends, Joe and Colin, and they go to a Cheap Trick concert. And on the way home from the concert on a Coda bus, they decide, even though they don't play musical instruments, they're going to start a band. And to this day, the band exists, and I just think that's really one of my favorite things to read about is through the ups and downs. As much as this is a book about music, it's a book about friendships.
Absolutely.
And not only is it Colin and Joe, but they have a roadie named Biggie. And
What is that great quote from Biggie? It's about they ask him, like, why do you do this? I mean, you're the road manager, and you lug the gear. And I'm paraphrasing,
Right.
But he says, well, because I'm doing it with you and Colin.
Right, that is yeah.
I mean, it could be, and he names off a laundry list of other mundane things they could do. And he's like, it'd be the same.
Yeah, so not only is Biggie, he's part of the thing. He's not even getting up on stage. He's hauling the gear for the band, and he's doing kind of the non-glamorous work. So it's, I highly, recommend reading the book. You
kind of jumped ahead a little bit
I know.
there. Don't we get the reviews
That's
later?
There's people there. They're right there. And so, anyway, the friendship part of it is I think why they do what they do. The book it follows this format where they go back and forth. So one chapter, they're back going through the history of Watershed. Then the next chapter, they're in the present day, going on this current tour. They're all, dads and guys pushing 40 or just over 40. So that back and forth format, Chuck, how did you do with that? How did you like that?
It's kind of like a movie, I'm reading about local guys, and I recently met Colin. He's one of our sponsors, for those of you that don't know, which we appreciate greatly. And having those characters in mind, and then those flashback stories, and just all how it ties into the modern day Watershed. And come on, we started it for this reason. We got to keep going. And then Joe's trying to I got to be a teacher. My wife's ready to cut it. So I thought it was good, mental imagery. I enjoyed his take on his writing style.
All right. Anybody else want to comment on the format, the way he kind of goes back and forth?
I mean, I've read 100 books that the flashbacks don't work. That you go back and forth and it gets tedious, and you're like, is this now? Is this when? When? Joe did a really nice job on it. It's easy to read, and I agree, it reads like a movie.
Yeah, I think it ran really smoothly. I never felt like I was lost or disoriented. How many of you are familiar with CBGBs? Have you ever heard of CBGBs? Yeah.
Yeah, legendary rock bar.
CBGBs.
Yeah, go ahead. Explain what, it is. It's like maybe the most famous rock club in the world. It was in existence for a few decades, and I think that just a few years ago,
I want to say within the last 5 years.
So many bands got their start there, from Television to the Ramones to Blondie and
Talking Heads.
Talking Heads.
Yeah. So it's in New York City, and Watershed gets their first ever gig in CBGBs. If you're in a band, this is a big deal. And again, it's kind of a tragedy and a comedy. They
I'm sure it's a comedy looking back on it. It's not a
Probably not
comedy
funny.
at the time.
Yeah.
Joe just does this fabulous job of they're booked at CBGB's. It's their first ever gig, you know. So they get the stuff, they load the van, they drive to New York. It's what, an 8 or 9 hour drive. Yeah. Some of their fans follow them to New York to go to this show, and they get there at, I don't know, noon. They load in all their stuff, and the guy who's running the thing says, "All right, see you in 11 hours." So you go on, you're the fourth band tonight. So they eat pizza, they take a nap, they walk around, they hang out, they take another nap, and they get back to CBGB's, and the bands are all running late. And some of the bands are playing over, and I can't do it justice without reading it, and I'm not going to read it. They take the stage, and there's like 4 minutes left in the whole night before closing time. And they're shoving the other band out of the way. They're setting their gear in front of the other band's gear. Like, this band will not be denied. And as they start to play their first song, the place is just emptying. There's 50 people. There's 30 people. There's 5 of them, and one of them's the bartender, and one of them's a dog. And they get halfway through their first song, and in their monitor, in their headsets, they hear the sound guy go, "Okay, thanks, guys." And they are like, if it's all the same to you, we're just going to keep playing. And which was, again.
We're already here.
Yeah.
Might as well do it.
It's probably funnier now than it was then.
So most bands, that one thing would kill.
Yeah.
Like, that would be the
yeah.
end.
They end up playing CB's like, I don't know, 8 or 10 more times, to much more success.
But this book is just a series of
Shots to the chin.
heartbreak.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just this bad thing happened, and then this bad thing happened, and you get the sense in the book like that they're all, really down to earth, and if they weren't, they wouldn't be friends anymore.
Yeah, agreed. I liked at the beginning of the book, it talks about, sometimes you headline, sometimes you just play last.
That's a great line. That is a great line. Now,
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, there are triumphs as well. I feel like maybe we're not paying enough attention to that. I mean, they play Polaris in front of thousands of people. Mm-hmm. They get followings in different cities where radio picks them up. Like someplace in Wisconsin, they're like the biggest band or one of the big bands. Here in Columbus, CD 102.5 plays them. You hear U2, you hear Watershed, then you hear REM. So there's a lot encouraging them.
And something else that back then, we're all spoiled with with the internet and all and things like everything's so instant and easy to have access to. Back then and up until the mid 90s, late 90s, there were such things as regional rock stars. People that were huge in 2 states, but then they'd go to Iowa and they can't drive get 5 people to walk in the door.
Right.
And these guys are a perfect example of that. Is like they were successful, but they weren't satisfied with just being like they wanted it all, and to stay on the same page. And that's we as a collective, as a book club, we've read 25 rock biographies, and there is a common thread in all of them, and it's when the band kind of gets off not the same page, when they all start, when everyone has like their own sort of separate goals, you can immediately see the material go downhill, and sometimes the band don't survive. And these guys, they never got off the same page. It's great.
And I think this band, the difference between all the other books that we read, they didn't experiment with heroin.
Yeah, there was no heroin.
This is our first smack-free book.
It literally is the only smack-free book.
Nobody hallucinated until snakes came out of their eyes. I think one guy puked in the van after too many beers, and I think that was the
only time that ever happens.
Yeah, it happens one time. Yeah, Biggie has to clean up pizza and barf. Okay, so we're going to move on now to, we talked about, like, there were those triumphs. For those of you not familiar, in the mid-'90s, Epic Records, a big record label, signs Watershed, moves them to New York City, and they spend, I don't know, what is it, a year or something? Mm-hmm. They work at the power station, which is where, like, Jimi Hendrix, AC/DC, am I lying? I mean, like, big
I don't know
names.
if you're lying. You might be.
They record where all the big stars record. One of the most famous studios, they record at the power station. And Joe writes about that in the book, about meeting a bunch of famous people. They meet Steven Tyler and Cyndi Lauper.
ICP.
What?
There's
What?
the ICP.
Everybody familiar with Insane Clown Posse, the horror shock rap group. They're on their big tour with the Great Malenko, which is their biggest album they ever had, and their opener drops off. So, the sound man says, you should call Watershed. Because that'll go together real well.
Who do you make, like, what happens at an Insane Clown Posse show?
So they have these fans called Juggalos, who are mostly teenage age dudes, and maybe some girls. I've never been to an Insane Clown Posse show, though I do know one time they were at the local venue in town, the LC, and I was out running and I ran by and I was like, why is the sidewalk so sticky?
Fago.
And it's because their thing is Fago, and they throw Fago at each other. That's the drink, the sport.
The pop?
The pop, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're.
I feel old.
I know, I do too.
My hair just
They're
got
these
gray.
crazy rappers, and they paint themselves all up, and they
Like
spray
clowns.
their fans with Fago. It's nuts.
This story makes less sense the farther we get into it.
So anyways, there's this band Watershed.
Yeah.
Yeah, where were we going with all that?
They were the opener on the tour.
That's right. They did like 40 or 50 dates with them. I mean, that's tough. That's not for the
And
faint of heart.
They were hated. They were hated. I like when Joe starts talking about at the beginning, and they're like, okay, so we're in a dressing room, and we just hear Watershed, Watershed, and they open the door, and then they're actually hearing Watershed sucks, Watershed sucks.
But you know what? You strapped on and went out and did it. And it's still, that's amazing. That's harder than what you think.
And Violent J, they said before they left the tour, that's the main rapper, the clown rapper. He's kind of leader. And
Violent J.
And he was talking to him. He was like, man, I don't know how you guys do it. I mean, our crowd hates you.
They
you get up there every night.
They would throw everything from batteries to Jolly
Yeah,
Ranchers to soda bottles.
Jolly Ranchers?
Adam.
That wouldn't be
But
bad.
they still got up there every night and did it. I mean, these guys had heart.
Joe said the one advantage was because they were mostly 14-year-old boys, their aim and arm strength wasn't that good. So it didn't really hurt that much, but they would always make some money from picking up the change off the stage at the end of the show every night.
Yeah, he wraps it up by saying, we're still down with the clown.
That's awesome.
Speaking of fame, we do a monthly Facebook poll question. And on our Facebook poll question, we asked anybody about their brushes with fame. And as always, we got some great responses. So I'm going to start with Mary, who met Bruce Springsteen. What? 1978 Bruce Springsteen.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Dreamy.
At Cincinnati. Yeah, Cincinnati Riverfront Stadium back in 1978. One of her dad's employees was Bruce's cousin. Wow. And so they all got to go hang out with, I guess, Bruce's family, and his aunts and uncles were there. And she hung out with Bruce Springsteen. And I know Mary, and I make her tell me that story every week.
Tell me again.
Yeah.
Was he as dreamy as I think?
I see why you need
He's kind of my
this.
boy crush. Yeah. Trent Reed said that he met Alice Cooper at a Rite Aid.
Who's she?
Yeah. And Alice was, Trent was the manager, and Alice was buying a bunch of throat spray to get ready for a show at Polaris. That would be an odd image.
I like to envision he was in full makeup the
Yeah,
whole time.
yeah.
I think he's always in
With
full
a
makeup.
snake around his neck.
Yeah.
Dragging a guillotine around, in a.
Do you have any halls?
Megan responded and actually included a photo of herself and John Bon Jovi, who was also young and dreamy in the photo. And Megan
Still
said,
is.
I can't pronounce it, some island in Italy. Megan's here somewhere. Okay, I'm going to put her on the spot. There she is.
What's the island?
Yes, sure.
Sure.
So Megan's there with, is it your cousin? Okay, yeah. So she recognizes John. This is like 20 years ago, John Bon Jovi. She recognizes his butt as he's walking by. And
Can you say, oh my God, I think that's John Bon Jovi's butt.
yeah.
Wow.
And so they call him back and ask if they can take a picture, and there's the pictures on our Facebook page. So go to Rock and Roll Book Club. It's of his face, though, and he's with you. Let's see. Seth is a recording engineer, and he said he talks to celebrities on the phone. One time he was taking a call and it was noisy, and the artist kept saying her name, and he kept hearing Cyndi Lauper, and he said he kept making her repeat it over and over again because he didn't want to feel like he was hearing Cyndi Lauper, and it was Cyndi Lauper.
A furious Cyndi Lauper after the 15th time.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think we're good to go with that.
Have you guys met anybody famous?
Yeah, what about your brushes with fame?
I met Steve Buscemi once at a wedding.
How did that go down?
I was DJing, and I thought, that guy looks kind of familiar. I said to the server, I go, who is that? She's like, that's Steve Buscemi. He's the bride's cousin. So it was this weird setup where I was like on a balcony above the dance floor where you had to go through an attic kind of to get to the balcony. And about halfway through dancing, Steve Buscemi walks up with his high school cousin, who was the only person he hardly talked to or hung out with all night. And he comes up and he's like, hey, man, will you play Surrender by Cheap Trick? And I didn't play it.
Did you? Oh, man.
No requests.
It was dancing. That's a great song. You can't dance to Surrender.
Ryan's
by
like,
Cheap Trick.
we're
Buscemi
doing
would've
the
been
wobble, mister. So,
Excuse me, Mr. Buscemi.
Chuck?
I met Snoop Dogg.
Seriously?
Yeah, I was backstage at Lollapalooza back in my metal days, so I was hanging with the boys in Korn because thought we were going to get our big record deal, believe it or not. So I'm back there, and I'm hanging with the Dog Pound and Korn in the dressing room. So we're drinking, I'm all cool, like, oh my God, I got my disposable camera, I'm taking these little shots. And then across the hall, there's two bodyguards, and it's Snoop Dogg's bodyguards. And I asked if I can meet Mr. Dogg. And so they said, oh, well, we'll see. They go in like
Mr.
5
Dogg.
Yeah, 5 minutes later, they come out and like, Mr. Dogg, we'll see you now. So when they opened the door, I mean, it was really like a movie. They opened the door, there's black lights, Snoop Dogg's in this Adidas, 3-striped suit, smoke comes rolling out, he's throwing like West Side Crip signs, and he's in there rapping with sunglasses. And I'm just like, wow. So that's my Snoop Dogg story.
That's crazy.
That's a great story.
Oh, thank you.
It's amazing how that just happened.
I did this like with Sharpie, and Tracy would not let me bring that, so she would not
Nice
allow
work, Tracy.
Good looking applause sign.
Nice
Yeah,
work, Tracy.
thank you. Do you guys want to do a brush with fame story before we move on?
Sure. It was here in Columbus. It was when I was Saving Jane, and we were playing at the LC, and it was like a big multi-bill show. And at the time, do you guys know who Brooke Hogan is?
Oh my God.
If you don't know, don't spoil it for anybody. So Brooke Hogan was on the show, and her father is fairly famous, and he would go to these shows with her. That's kind of how that she would get on some of these bills. So we're sound checking, and I'm looking down, and we had actually we were somewhere else, so even though Columbus is home, we were driving through. So tired, whatever, looking down, tuning, and I hear this like, "Hey brother,
That was good.
do you know where the dressing room is?" or something like that. And I'm like, "What?" And I look up and I see this huge pectoral muscle in front of me, and my eyes keep going up, and it's Hulk Hogan. And I mean,
Was he like naked from the waist up, or was it?
He always wears the yellow Speedo.
Yeah, was he?
No, he was completely dressed. But and at the time, I had met my share of famous people, but I was a tongue-tied schoolgirl. I'm like, I couldn't talk to him. I mean, looking back, I'm like, I should have got him put me in a headlock, or just like hit him or
Give me
something.
a half Nelson.
Yeah,
Hit me with a chair. Hit me with a chair.
But I didn't. I'm lame. Remember, you were there. Yeah, you remember that.
All right. That was lovely. Okay, it's book rating time. Woohoo! Ryan Smith, why don't you explain our complicated 3-tiered book rating system? Would you please?
Yes, it is shelf it is the top level. That means that you would like to own it. There's borrow it, which means you would borrow it from a friend or maybe a library.
Wow.
No, that doesn't need an applause line. Libraries are awesome, but
and
skip it, which means we
took the hit
Yeah.
for you.
yeah, don't read it.
But just real quick, when we first started this, I approached Pat and I said, if I made a book club and all we read were trashy rock star bios, would you be in it with me? And Pat said, yeah, but only if we read Motley Crue, The Dirt, because it's the only book I own. That's how we got started.
And here we are.
Yeah, I know. It's, wow. All right. So, boy, who wants to go first? Let's just go left to right or right to left.
That's me.
Yeah. Shelve it, borrow it, skip it.
Oh, this is total shelf. This book, it's shelf plus. Like, buy 2 copies and give one to a friend. This book is great. And you don't even have to know the music, but the music, if you go along with it, it takes you on a journey. I'm not, no jokes, no funny stuff. This book is awesome. You should buy it.
One shelf. Chuck Johnson.
Well, I mean, no pressure since Colin's in the building, but
He didn't write it.
He didn't write it. He's just the star.
Yeah, but
we trash
those
it,
guys stick
just don't
together.
say
Come on.
anything. Yeah.
No, all kidding aside, the book is really incredible. I mean, it could be a movie, and I mentioned that to a couple of you guys. Like, it's just crazy, the journey. I mean, it's like an Almost Famous type tale, but but a lot of local connections. So I would say shelf it as well. I really enjoyed it.
All right. I'm going to give the third shelve it. I think even if you're not a music fan, this is just a great story about friendship. And you bring up a good point. They write, Joe writes about Columbus in a really marvelous way. It's fun to live in this city and read about the book. It's just, I'm probably the primo reading nerd up here. And this is one of my favorite music books of all time. And I don't mind a drug-infested bio, but it is kind of nice that these guys are relatively...
Budweiser and pretzel guys, man.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Thank you for
I mean, in a
not
good way,
smoking
yeah.
crack until snakes come out of your eyeballs. And it was great. I give it a shelve it. What are you going to do, Ryan?
Oh, the pressure's on Ryan. Everyone, be quiet. What's he going to say?
So this was the first book that I read as part of book club, even though it was the second book. I was
actually
not
read
around
this before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we read this before. And I do want to say, first off, after reading 20 plus books since then, you really realize how well this is written, because we've read some clunkers.
True.
Oh, there's some bad ones out there.
I'm going to say borrow, because you can get it from the library, and I'm going to say send Joe $20.
Yeah,
Hey,
nice.
there you go.
Very clever.
So our rating system gets complicated.
Every time.
So that's a borrow
I know.
plus
It's in
purchase.
all caps with an exclamation
Plus a
point.
PayPal.
So.
Plus a PayPal.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's playlist time.
You didn't hold up your sign, Mark.
didn't know.
They didn't know. It wasn't good enough.
This is my favorite part of the whole show
Why is that, Mark?
because I feel like it's our gift to you. Because,
Wow.
And it's cost nothing. It costs the same as the cupcakes. Have we done like the thank you?
We
and
should do that.
Yeah.
Buttercream Bakery, where are you? Where's the lovely Amanda over here? If you have not had one of those, I mean, it amp you up. That stuff is fantastic. And again, I feel like this is like the Colin Gala's great show, but Colin supplied the coffee and the
Thank
tea
you.
and the water for that. So thanks
Yeah.
for that too. Colin's Coffee, Upper Arlington. Stop in.
Okay, so, we spend a month or so reading this book, and we're kind of naturally inclined to listen to the music of this band and maybe some related bands. So we each bring 3 songs to each podcast, and we combine them for a 12-song playlist. It's our gift to you. And what we do is we say 2 songs real quick and then kind of elaborate on a 3rd song. That's our pick. I'll go first. I'm going first. All right, I'm gonna go with Cheap Trick, If You Want My Love, because Cheap Trick was like Watershed's band. They formed at driving home from a Cheap Trick concert. I'm losing my train of thought all of a sudden. And that song to me should have been a hit. So you got to listen to If You Want My Love by Cheap Trick. And by the way, we have these on a Spotify playlist and on our website and blah, blah, blah. So that was really long for my non-pick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, and we're right on time too. Okay, my next pick is 21 Pilots, Stressed Out. Maybe you heard of it. 21 Pilots is another Columbus band, and that song Stressed Out right now is like one of the 5 most listened to songs on the planet. And it's catchy. It's very snappy and catchy.
10 choruses in that song.
Yeah, it's good. They're a local band that luckily things are really working out for them. And good, they're good. So my pick that I'm going to talk a lot on
Wow. We got to be out of here by 8:30.
is Watershed, Wallflower Child. And I did start listening to a lot of Watershed while we read this book. And man, Watershed's catchy, these rock edge sing-along songs. And I would listen to Wallflower Child in and around REM, Rolling Stones, Tom Petty, anything else that I listen to. That's my pick, Wallflower Child by Watershed. Chuck Johnson, why don't you go?
I went with all local artists. I'm sure most of you know that the scene in Columbus is pretty incredible.
Am I on your list?
No. Next time, Pat. Next time. But across genres, from bluegrass to hip hop, to country, there's so much great art and music happening in the city. So I went with all local artists. My first pick was a song by Megahertz. It's called Obituaries, featuring Copyright and Camuteo, R.I.P., and RJD2. So they're really dope. If you don't know them, definitely check them out. I really like the song. It's pretty aggressive and hard. Next was a band that kind of crossed me over to a local scene, the New Bomb Turks. But a lot of you guys probably know them from the scene.
Yeah.
And I picked Mr. Suit. That song kind of pulled me in. I used to go see them at OU when I was there all the time. And my main pick was Lydia Lovelace, Wine Lips, off her last record. Man. So she's it's probably going down the same train as Watershed, not in the
should be huge. She should be.
And she's on her way for sure. Yeah, so that's not a negative, but she's doing her thing for sure. They're a really good band. They are out there working. So if you don't know her, check her out. She plays locally under aliases all the time, and also on bigger venues. So yeah, that's my
Very
list.
nice. Good job. All right, Ryan Smith.
First pick, Foot Soldier by the Stepford Five. Second pick, I Fall in Love with My Friends by Hal and Maggie.
Nice.
Ooh. Third pick, see, this is how you're supposed to do it. You don't ramble between.
Hey.
I got a couple more things I forgot.
Third pick, King's Horses by John Chen.
Nice.
So this took me down a Columbus music wormhole listening spree, but like 2000 to like 2004.
Yeah.
So it's all it's that time when I was in college, post-college, it brought me back to all these records that meant a lot to me. And so I wanted to include them.
That's very sweet.
Fantastic. Again, if you go to Rock and Roll Book Club on Facebook or R&R Book Club, just find us and you can get the links to these songs. We really do a phenomenal job with this. It's where the taste is just fantastic. All right, Pat Buzzard, take it home.
Oh, because I totally thought I was about to get skipped, and I was gonna pull the trigger on you. I'm not gonna lie, I've drank a lot of coffee today, and I'm really, I'm a little jittery, and I can't remember all of my songs, but I know that one of them was a Marvelous 3 song. Which one was it, Ryan?
I don't know. I'm looking something else up right now. I really am.
And the only reason I picked a Marvelous 3 song is A, I like those guys a lot, and B, Colin told me a really nice story about him and Butch Walker. They would share notes to each other, at their office, at the label's office. So I thought that was cool. The other one was a Cheap Trick song, Surrender, and then
5th of July. Didn't you? Was that right?
That was the big reveal. You just did it.
Well, I thought I was helping you.
No, I remember that part. So the 5th of July, thanks, Mark, was my Watershed song, and I actually love that entire record. And world out there, if you're listening, that song needs to be put on vinyl, or that whole record needs to be on
No
vinyl. It's
kidding.
great. I would love to hear it with the needle on it.
I may have had a
Put the
little too
needle on
much
the record.
coffee. All right, so
Ruined it.
all right, so that's kind of a wrap. I think I don't even know where to go. What do we do now?
I think we have a rousing applause.
Yeah, thank you
Rousing
very
applause.
much for being here. Thank you. What we do is we actually promote the next book. And one of the reasons we wanted to gather people together is maybe you'll start reading along with us, and we can start to make that an aspect of our. You can be rock and roll book clubbers too. And
groupies?
so we rotate the picks. We could use roadies actually.
Yeah, we could.
We rotate the picks, and it's Ryan's turn to pick. So what are we going to read next?
We are going back to the 33 1/3 series.
Yes.
Nice.
Because they're short,
And they're great.
like 100 pages. You can read them in like an hour. But they are great. And
I
this
could read them in an
time,
hour.
we've never done a jazz record. So we're going to do Miles Davis,
Jazz
Bitches
Book Club.
Brew,
Yeah, I like that.
So pick it up.
which is by George Grella Jr. Is that how you say his name?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Just because we know how to read doesn't mean we know how to pronounce.
So I'm going to stop stomping all over you when you talk, but back to you.
I don't even know where I was at. So, okay. Give us a couple minutes. You guys, if you want to hit the restroom, do whatever, then come up, get back in here, get your seats, if there's a cupcake left, and then Colin's going to play some songs. Then we're going to talk to Joe, and I'm going to have questions out here. I want to talk to you guys. When Joe comes in, this is a Q&A for you guys, because we've just told you about the book, and you can talk to Joe. Be like, hey, they were talking about blank, or what was it like to do blank? Think of a cool question. Don't make us look stupid. Thanks, guys.
That won't be difficult. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.